All right, Emergency LOLz on a Monday. If you aren't criminally online, then you might have missed a ton of online conversations over the past, say, 72 hours or so since ETR launched their new draft assistant tool for best ball drafts. Adam has received more hate in his mentions, he says, than ever in his life. And we figured this would be a better forum to have a nuanced conversation about this than Twitter. So Adam, we're welcoming Levitan, of course, Taylor Caby, co-founders at ETR, and we'll have this conversation. But maybe start us off with Adam, like what is the product you guys released, and we can kind of build the foundation and fast forward from there.
Yeah. I'm actually depressed, man. I woke up. I didn't even think anyone was going to watch the video. You know, me and Herzig did a video last week. I didn't think it was a big deal. You know, these tools have been out here for like 3 years. I haven't heard like any complaints about them. And I woke up on, I guess it was Thursday or Friday, to like hundreds of the most like vile shit in my mentions I've ever seen and in the comments. So at that point, I was like, oh man, we should really look into this. And I started to type out some replies on Twitter and just like a long thread, but it's nuanced and I think it's complicated. And I hear what people are saying for sure, but it's really complicated. And there's like larger issues at play, just like with society and technology and everything going on also. So I thought this would be a better discussion, and where better to have it than on my favorite DFS show by far, LOLz. I don't think we can match the gay porn episode you guys did a few weeks ago, but hopefully we can be close.
A draft assistant tool did spark more outrage than gay porn being shown to stochastic viewers, though. Let the record just say that.
Yeah, I mean, the tool is relatively similar to what's already been out there for the last 2 years. If you watch the video that Herzig and I did, basically we built a program which suggests to you what we think are the best picks available for you, and it grades them. So if you took Lamar Jackson and it gets to you close to the Mark Andrews pick, it's going to show you that Mark Andrews should be a 10.0 in the grading scale, or Rashad Bateman, or whatever. It also, if you take Lamar Jackson in round 2, it dynamically docks other quarterbacks. Like you shouldn't be taking Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts with back-to-back picks in a best ball draft. And so this goes through a Chrome extension. And yeah, it's just like relatively simple stuff, I thought. And people have been using it for years. And that's why I was kind of just like shocked at first by all the backlash.
Taylor, one thing I've noticed, and I'm curious if you've picked up on this from the feedback you've gotten, is there seems to be a confusion with like the brand name of the company, the solver, and what the product is. Like a lot of people are saying they released a solver as if it is like a sim tool for best ball draft, when it is the solver, the company released a tool called a draft assistant. Do you want to clarify that for people?
Yeah, actually, when we started the solver two plus years ago, or whenever it was, I was concerned there would be confusion because poker solvers are like such a popular product and have been like a revolution in like poker strategy over the last decade. And I just thought it might be confusing because people like use those products and they're popular. At the same time, it is like a brand that's like consistent with helping you find like smart ways to like, you know, solve problems in fantasy sports basically. And yeah, it's a draft assistant. Like it's not really solving anything. In fact, I don't even know if that's possible really in fantasy sports. There's so many variables that are different. Like poker is just more of a solvable game, I think, than this. But yeah, it's not a solver. It's just an assistant that's helping you make decisions.
Brian, I think it'd be helpful to also give people a little history. I believe the Draft Caddy was the first thing of this, whatever genre of draft assistants we're talking about. And the initial iteration that you launched was up for about 4 days, right? Before Underdog said it was not allowed and you shut it down. So maybe talk about the distinction of what you first released to what the product of the Draft Caddy is now.
But I mean, that time period reminds me when Levitan was talking, I'm like, you sweet summer child, you haven't gotten hate yet for your drafting tool. Cause do you remember, Pete, we did like a couple episodes on it back in the day. Like there was a lot of hate, and we probably will eventually have to talk more about like what we think should be allowed and stuff like that. But the first iteration, and it's been so many years, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, but I think we had it auto taking the player.
Yeah.
And that was their main problem. So kind of the original idea, first of all, there's an overlay part to this and a drafting part to this. The overlay part is me ripping off Taylor, it's poker tracker idea, and applying it to best ball. So you can see like stats on your opponents that are publicly available. It's not, it's not tracking it, your opponents. You can put ETR's ranks up there next to the player's name, put your own ranks, whatever, some like an easy, instead of having to go between tabs and stuff, the bye weeks, which are coming out, right. And correlations you have, stuff like that. That's the overlay tool. And then I wanted, since I don't draft as crazy as you guys, well, Davis and Pete. And I'm like, this auto draft that they have built into Underdog stinks, and it makes like the worst teams. Like, at least give me a little upgrade. So I had my coder do just like a kind of a simpler upgrade of, the maximum amount of players allowed on my teams it would draft, a correlation, some of the obvious correlations, the QB to wide receivers and tight ends, and a little bit to running backs. And so anyways, I put that on there, and it was an auto drafter. So you could set all those up and start a draft. And if you want to walk away, you click it on and leave. That's the problem they had. So we had to update it where it just suggests the player. And so we did that and by the way, DraftKings had a problem too. And I sent them the code. I just gave them the code. And like, I don't care. Like, DraftKings is not going to do anything with it, right? And they were fine with it. So, and I either gave Underdog the code or offered them the code as well, but made that change. And so it just suggested a player. And then ever since then, there's been more and more products coming out that are pretty similar. I don't know the internal design of all the products that are out there, but I think that's the gist of it.
And so Levitan, you guys, there's been other products out here. You guys are obviously not going to invest time, resources, money, whatever, investing in a product like this if it's not allowed. And you're working under the assumption, I assume, from talking to Underdog and seeing these other products, essentially, not saying it's not a good product, but it's comparable to the stuff that is out there. Is that kind of the assumption you guys were working under?
For sure. And I mean, I think there's two separate discussions here that people think that we should have. What are the actual facts? What's actually going on in the best ball landscape? And then there's what should be allowed, or what should be, right? Those are two totally separate discussions to me in terms of what's actually allowed. Yeah. Underdog, and like, people keep playing this clip of my interview with Jeremy. And like, I told Jeremy what I thought. I think he was like somewhat blindsided by the question. He said yes. And then to what I thought, but then then it seemed like Underdog and both DraftKings, it sounds like, came out with like, listen, if it's not auto making picks for you, it's fair game, and at that point, everybody else is like building these tools. We wouldn't even build anything for like 2 years. And finally we were like, well, everybody else has this. Our customers are asking us for it. It's like, all right, well, I guess we have to build it then at that point, like the ETR community was like, everybody else has this. Why don't you guys have this? So I don't know, like, there's a different question, which we can have later, I think, which is what should be allowed, or what is actually enforceable. But what actually is going on in the landscape right now is totally different than what people think, is my estimation.
So after this, I started going through the threads, and because Adam, you're tagged in all these, so you see it way more than everyone else. So like, I saw like some complaining, but not to the level that until you DM'd us, and I was like, whoa, let me go look. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that's like 90% hate replies. I do think I think a big part of it is the company name mixed in with the product. So when you put we have solved best ball, they people just look at headlines, right? And they just go, oh, they have a solver now for best ball, and they are ruining the game. They didn't look at your video. They didn't watch the demonstration of the product. They didn't read the details. They just saw solver, best ball. I hate you. I think that was a big part of it. Pete, do you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. And I think And I'm curious, Taylor, because you have so much experience seeing like the maturation of the poker world, obviously the DFS salary cap world, and how tools have, accelerated, the skills of players, raised the floor, made it tougher to beat. I think there's this feeling that best ball was this, cozy little place where people had to come and invest time in the the playing field was level, and that now this is somehow the tipping point, that your guys' tool signals everyone is going to be using these to draft. And now this is going the way of poker and salary cap DFS, and people don't like how that feels, is essentially kind of how I've read a lot of the comments.
I think that's definitely the perception. And I definitely get the feeling that if you're doing an activity and you feel like you can make money at it, or like in the status quo, and then something comes along that gives other people, I would honestly say it's more of a level playing field for people that are not in the weeds all the time. Like if you're grinding day in, day out, you're putting hours and hours of time in, you're going to have an advantage. If you're a guy that's playing like now, I don't know, spending an hour a day on it, a couple hours a day, not like a ton of time, you can use a tool to consolidate information. And I would say be on a more level playing field to that guy than you were before. Now, is that like fair? Well, I think so, in the sense that like technology is just always advancing, and like this type of stuff is used across, like poker as an example, DFS as an example. Like it would be great if optimizers didn't exist. The guys that had the best like Excel models, or I don't even know what else you would use like privately, would do better. But like you could ban them. You could say, oh, you can't use an optimizer, but it would never be able to be enforced. And like that to me is the key. Like if Underdog said no one is allowed to use any tool that helps them gives them any information while they're drafting, it would not be enforceable. Like it just wouldn't be. You could build something on your own computer that would not be detectable by Underdog, and that is what will happen. And honestly, just to give people a little more backstory on this product, we waited a couple years to get involved because we had what we thought were more pressing like things to go after. We were building best DFS sims. Our DFS optimizer, the solver, was getting built, and this just didn't seem like that big of an opportunity. We had someone approach us last summer that had already built the product, and they were using it with their friends, like I don't want to say behind the scenes, but just like not publicly. It was being used, and like it's the same product. We made some improvements to it and just like changed a few things around. But this was already out there, and it just wasn't being sold. And Brian's got a product that's being sold. Pat Carrain has a product that's being sold. Spike Week's been out for 2 years. This has already been going on. So my view is just, we were sort of behind the 8 ball if we didn't do something. Now that we worked on some other stuff, we had a clear path to a good product. So we partnered with the person that built the product to do it. And honestly, I just think it's like, just from like a rational perspective, like if we didn't do this, our customers were going to go use Brian's tool or Pat's tool. And I kind of think that puts us in a difficult position from a competitive standpoint, business wise. So that's kind of a roundabout answer, but like, this is the way that it always goes. And like, if they change the policy, it's just going to help the people that break the rules. And like, that's not a great thing either. So I don't know. I see both sides of it, I guess.
Yeah. And I think Levitan too, like, and I know you will appreciate this, and that like so much of the comments are like an entitlement to an EV, to plus EV, or an entitlement to like the fish. Like a lot of the comments are, this tool is going to make other drafters better. It's like, no fucking shit. Like, so are rankings, so are any written podcasts. Like that is the entire point of content and tools, is to make players better. It's just weird to me, the sense of entitlement that like I deserve to have a game where I have an edge, when in every other facet of betting and gambling, you think like, where are the people beating the markets? Okay, you can't beat NFL sides now because they're so efficient. So you got to go bet South Korean ping pong because you're hunting for the next edge. And there's this idea of like, where I'm at, the thing I love to do, there should be an edge there. And now you're somehow threatening that. Yeah.
I think, two things I would say about that. Like, first, I get it. I love to play online poker. I used to play, I love poker in general. I would be fearful of playing online poker now for fear that I'm getting botted, or I'm getting cheated, or I'm getting RTA'd, or or whatever, right? So I get it from that view, but it's just, I don't like sit around and like, woe is me. It's like, this is technology. This is the way that everything is going to go no matter what, right? And so the other part that I would say about it is a lot of people have been like, man, best ball is supposed to be for fun. This is ruining the fun. That one I don't get, man. It's fucking $2 million to first. There are a fistful of 7-figure prize pools across various contests on various sites. There's 10K buy-ins. There's 3Ks. There's the 555s. There's the 500s. Anytime you have action like that, there are going to be people really, really trying hard to maximize their edge. And like all these people saying, oh, best ball's supposed to be for fun. They don't realize how many people out there are out there grinding their cocks with tools like this out there already. And so I thought that people would be like, oh, wow, thanks guys for like bringing these tools. Thanks guys for bringing these tools to the forefront when we're getting crushed by all the guys behind the scenes. I guess they didn't know that they were getting crushed behind the scenes by guys with these tools already. Some people might have an auto drafter out there already. I have no idea. You can't auto on our pick, but someone might be auto drafting really sharply right now as well, right? So like, I see it from both sides, like I get that the puppy's gonna be tougher now. I might actually play the puppy this year. I've never played the puppy before in my life. I might play the puppy this year using the tool. And so I'll have entries in the puppy, which I didn't have before, which I expect to be plus EV entries. So I get it, man. Like I get why people are pissed. At the same time, like, let's not kid ourselves and be like, this is for fucking fun. It's not for fun. It's for money. And like we always say, ETR is not for everyone. It's for people really trying hard to win. So I felt like we were not serving our customers who are guys who are really, really trying hard to win if we're not trying to help them with this.
It's the odd dynamic that Taylor was talking about. Taylor, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. Like the thing that I think is interesting to think about is like assuming this lets people play more volume, like that can increase the amount of entries going into best ball. So obviously a lot of those are sharper entries. But at the same time, prize pools could grow substantially because of this. It's the same thing with like in poker with HUDs, allow people to play more tables. Optimizers and software allow people to put more entries in DFS. Like that is like in some people's view a net positive from the buy-in standpoint. I get there's downsides too.
Well, and there's cognitive dissonance for people because a lot of times the same people complaining about these things are the same people saying win puppy underdog. When's the next tournament you're underdog? Well, when this one fills, when there's 150 maxers who are getting in there to fill it, or they say like, when is underdog going to fix the screenshots or this thing with my exposure tab? Well, when they feel like there's enough money coming in to devote more resources to it, in the same way you guys were teetering on, should we devote resources to this best ball play? Like you can't want the ecosystem to grow, the player pool to big, the player prizes to, or the prizes to grow, and then also say like, but we need to shut down anything that grows the game or makes it easier for people to put in entries. Like that dissonance doesn't really work for me.
This is like deja vu for me, Pete. Like it's fun because I had like all these takes 3 years ago that like where like from our from the poker world where like basically all of us came from. Poker Tracker like brought in guys too, because like you would see like you'd watch a video on YouTube or something. I guess there was no YouTube then, but you'd see a video in the big, hey, or a screenshot, and there'd be like these numbers next to the players' names. And like, what is that? And it's like, what's VPIP? And then it could get people interested, like, so maybe there is a lot of skill involved in here. And so like these overlays have all that kind of interest. And I specifically built my app for the player archetype Taylor's describing, me who doesn't want to spend hours and hours in best ball, but I want a little gamble, but I don't want to be a donkey. You know what I mean? So like, it's not like a huge EV a change for me, but it's like limiting my downside by the tool I built, years ago, or technically somebody else built it. I told them what to build, and so like there's so many. Like little pieces that people aren't talking about. And then the other one is that aught is dynamic, that like Taylor was kind of getting at earlier, of there's the way things should be and the reality on the ground, the way things are. And the reality is I know guys who have very sophisticated programs for beating best ball. They could easily do this. And we have like EZ in chat. This is like a kind of a separate point, but he had that the Google Sheets product he had, Pete, right?
Yeah.
He still does it. Like you could just go to the Google Sheets and then put in the players and get a very similar product to what all of the ones we're doing, that there's nothing Underdog could do about it. So there's just a whole array of bros out there who can have like these products otherwise. So like the argument I think that like people would say that makes the most sense is kind of just like outlawing anything in life. It's like, yeah, you won't get you won't get rid of it, but you'll get less of it. I think that's kind of the strongest argument I see out there for banning any of these products. But I think the end will be some sort of middling solution, like this far, no further. And then you have the benefit of allowing the like middling users, the noob users to have access to these tools at a reasonable price that can lower their floor or raise their floor rather, which is good for them and good for Underdog, really, right? They don't want their guys just burning cash, but have a cap on a ceiling. Now, even because I don't see Underdog having a choice, like an option other than that. They can't just go Wild West, and they've made like their opinion known in my world. Like I know exactly like what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do, which is why we haven't gone any further, because we have the skill set to do that, and we're not, because like we don't want to get banned. I mean, so but the odd is of this is really the tricky part, and when you're trying to talk about this online, Adam, it's not gonna work. You're just gonna get called a name, a slur, and then they're gonna move on.
I think it's really important to note, and I'm trying to say this without throwing the sites under the bus as much as possible, that they need to be clear about what the rules are, and if they don't, that's going to be a big problem. And I think that's where we are right now. I think what is being done right now is completely allowed by the sites. There's 3 programs that I know of that have been doing this for at least a year, if not 2. We just launched a product that's doing the same thing. And if it's not allowed, they need to say what's not allowed. And if it is allowed, they need to define those rules, and then everybody will play by them. And like, that's the big thing, is people are kind of going, well, so-and-so said this, or what's this? What about this? And like, nobody really knows. So we did talk to Underdog either this weekend or earlier today, and they're going to come out with some sort of statement or, some update. Let's call it that. And I think DraftKings is in the same boat. Like, they need to just say something, and people can get over it at that point in time. But there are reasonable arguments on both sides, but there needs to be rules on the field.
DraftKings needs liquidity, so don't expect anything too harsh coming out of them. I think some of the things they've already said are what they'll just repeat, but I guess people didn't listen, which would be no automation. You can't pick for the user. Yeah. And then I don't know how they put a cap on suggestions. They'd have to get kind of creative on there. That's probably the direction they're going to go. But you don't want to go, in my opinion, this is all, just my opinion. You don't want to go too harsh, because then you open up the Pandora's box of the black market.
That's exactly my main point, is you were talking about the guy that doesn't have access to this tool that now does. He's raised his floor, and that like, he's probably not going to make as many, not that person necessarily is making bad picks, but like, it makes it easier to go, oh man, I should think about that pick. Or, oh, I forgot this guy is on the same team as the quarterback I drafted. He's got a badge that says, S for stack, or whatever this product says. That's a very simple thing that's helpful, but I don't see that being unfair in any way. So if you take that away, you're just giving an advantage to the people that are going to use it. And sadly, a lot of people will.
You touched on this earlier too. It's subjective in nature. A lot of these things are super subjective, because we're comparing it to solvers and poker. There's a set of number of clubs and spades and cards in the deck. It's a lot easier to actually solve for that. You can't really solve for Best Ball Monster people. You don't need to worry. Because we've talked about this. I mean, honestly, for our private stuff, and it would be a huge undertaking for very little gain, in my opinion. to really completely solve, try to solve the best you could. And solve. I probably shouldn't even use that word because people are going to get a different interpretation of what solving in sports actually is. And someone we're all friends with, Ricky D, would always have this complaint about saying there's a EQ, like equilibrium strategy in DFS. He's like, it's not possible. It's not possible. And because of all these unknown variables, throughout sports. And there's definitely some truth to that. But like, as far as getting close as you can, we'll say like that's what solving is for like full season. Okay, who's the quarterback for the Browns in Week 15? Solve.
If someone knows, can they tell me? That'd be helpful.
Yeah, it would be super helpful if we could actually solve for these things. And so, by its very nature, all this stuff is subjective. Like maybe Adam actually never watched a football game in his life, and he's just using ChatGPT to make up all his articles. You know what I mean? Like it's like people's guesses, and we're guessing like what some of these actual like correlations and draft capital buckets and everything. We're using smart statistical measures to try to estimate this stuff for sure, but it's still all just a guess.
Yeah. I have this pushback in like projections all the time. People think that there's some like black box where the computer knows the answer. They don't realize how much manual input goes into every one of our projections for both weekly and season long. Like we spend an hour discussing what our share of passing attempts should be between Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler. And if we change that, that's going to change the ranking massively. And so like people think that this is some like takeover, all projections are some takeover by technology, just don't really understand what's going on. We are, all of us, like there's like 10, 15 of us that are talking about this stuff every single day. The inputs that go into the model to me is even more important than the model. If we say, what do you think the Amari and Hampton versus Najee Harris share of carries is going to be? Pete might have something different to say. I might have something different to say. Evan might have something different to say. Brian might have something different to say. That to me is way more important than any of the technology stuff. The technology stuff is there for after you've established that, how can we implement this stuff in contest in the most optimal way? And so, yeah, I just had to push back on the whole, like people think that technology is literally making all the rankings and all the picks. It's just not. And it'll never be. And I don't think it'll ever be at the point where it can better than we can with some mix of technology and people.
And you were saying that in your comments, like they put AI, they have AI making the picks for you now in the ETR. So I'm like, I doubt it.
That is absolutely not what's going on.
Yeah.
In no way is AI making any pick. And like, it's not even making picks anyways, but in no way is it AI like helping people make picks.
And I've heard, like, I've listened to how Karain markets the Sidekick. I've listened to how people talk about, I see how users say that they use these tools, and without fail, and obviously I'm in a self-selective community, people who play a ton of best ball, but whatever, it saves me time. I can do a bunch of slow drafts. I can go through, I can do drafts. Know what the jokes are, that they ignore the picks far more than they actually use the recommendations, but it's a way to hop in a draft, a slow draft, and quickly reorient yourself and be able to do a ton of picks. Like without fail, no one is saying it's giving me an edge. I hear it's saving me time is what I hear about these tools the most. And then people conflate, they're saying in the chat, like, well, does it give you an edge or does it not? The whole point is that these things can give you an edge, but realizing that edge in a massive Best Ball Mania contest with hundreds of thousands of entries is an entirely different thing.
I don't understand. They're saying, does it give you an edge? And then they're complaining that it's ruining best ball. How can it not give you an edge and ruin best ball at the same time? Am I fucking going insane or what?
Well, I was going to say too, we've heard like everything from this is way overpriced at it's like $35 a month to this is going to ruin the games. And I honestly, the truth is somewhere in between. Like it's going to help some people play better and certainly save them time. And if you can be saved time, you might play more drafts. So if the best players are playing more drafts, that's going to have an impact on the ecosystem. Like we'd be lying if we said otherwise. But again, it's going to happen whether we're here or not. And it was happening on Friday before we put up this video. So, it's just, it kind of is what it is.
There was somebody literally calling us idiots in chat in the start of the show. It's like, well, then what do you have to worry about? If we're all idiots, like, who cares?
It's all the things. It's the tools are awful and don't help you. Pat's just forcing you to draft Drake May 20 picks ahead of ADP, but it's also the downfall of the game we love. That's like the cognitive dissonance with the arguments is the hard part. And I understand that people are like, I just want underdog to make a clear statement. Like those kind of things, like I completely understand. It's when you're trying to say, I want soft rooms, but also your tool sucks and it doesn't help anyone. It's like, how does that make sense?
If we like try to like steel man them, right, and take their side for a second, it's I still just think it's pretty unrealistic. So like listen, this is what I would rather have in poker too. Like I would have had Card Runner shut down day one, you know what I mean? I would have had Poker Tracker banned and the government would get involved, you know, and that sounds silly, but like honestly, underdog can't so like if you put like a law in real life to dissuade, you know, people from making bad decision X, they have the power of the police force. They could bring you, they have all these measures and tons of money to oversee it. If you ban if underdog bans something for their company, they can't go out and arrest people. They can't afford to hire the amount of employees to check and oversee. They're already, you know, have so much time in their hand looking through all these drafts and stuff. It's never going to actually happen. Like it's just not going to happen. And so like, but to their, like from their point of view, I think it would lower the amount of guys who use these tools if they banned it, outright banned it. It certainly would. That's a fact. So you got to give them that credit. But the way the current iteration of most of the tools are by the way, this is the worst sales pitch that any of these companies or apps over is not as good as they're making it out on Twitter in the last few days. So you would get a smaller amount of people using that if you just outright ban it. I think that's true. You would lose liquidity. You would lose interest that you can gain from people seeing these tools and then getting ideas for how to try to beat the game and play when they otherwise wouldn't. So I think it's fair to say if they completely ban it, yes, it would lower it. I'm not sure it would do as much as they think. And then you have to do the flip side too of opening up that Pandora's box, because it makes a hell of a lot more sense. Let's say it did lower the skill level of the field with an outright ban tomorrow. Now you're incentivizing sharp guys to make better tools privately. If you're raising the floor with these tools, it's a big distance. This is a problem in DFS right now. Is the we did a episode, maybe it was behind the paywall on Endgame, but we talked about this middling group of DFS player that makes that like pays the rake essentially, but doesn't win, but doesn't lose. It's kind of in this like middle game. But this is a big problem with your profitability of actually being a plus EV player is the size of that group. The bottom group has been kind of consistent, maybe getting a little smaller as the fields get smaller and just these things get less important. But it's that middle league group that makes up a big portion of how much you can expect to make. So the reason I say that is because if a coding genius wants to get involved in best ball and then they survey the land and they go, well, there's a bunch of guys who they can have a floor because of these tools. I'm probably can only make like 15% ROI if I spend 50 hours coding this out. I'm just not going to do it. And then you get rid of that and he might change his mind. It's a real life thing.
Levitan, what do you say? So one of the other, people are very worried about the comparisons to DFS, and, maybe people's mileage may vary about the health of the DFS ecosystem, but feeling like, solvers and sims are table stakes to playing at a high level right now, at least in tournaments. What do you say to the people who are like, what we're most concerned about is that best ball turns into DFS essentially, and that if you're not using these tools, you have zero chance to win and you're just essentially drawing dead beyond that? Because it seems like that's where a lot of the concern comes from.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, but I don't think that'll be the case with best ball, no matter how these tools evolve. That said, I'm sympathetic to that, man. I was winning way more in DFS before tools. I was winning way more in DFS before projections were ubiquitous. I was winning way more before optimizers and sims. And that was when, people like Ricky had sims when no one else did. And who was Max Dallery had optimizer when no one else did, or I'm sure other people did, but that was like the stuff that came out later. I wish none of that stuff existed, but I feel like I'm a realist in that this stuff is going to happen no matter what. We live in the age of technology, and like it's going to happen no matter what. It's up to us to adapt or move on. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. Like, I don't really know what to tell people. That it's like I think Taylor had a comparison to like farmers, or I don't know. It's just like it is what it is. Like, I wish none of this stuff existed. Believe me, I feel like I was meant to be born in like 1957 or something like that. I feel like I would have been way better off and way happier. But yeah.
Would you go as far as to say those are simpler times?
Yes, simpler times, happier times.
Would you be so bold?
Yeah, I mean, I dropped a bunch of like ridiculous comparisons or analogies like privately when we were talking about this. Like, farming might have been the dumbest one. Of just like, there was a time when like 90% of the world were farmers, and like when these tools came out, it pissed a lot of people off that they weren't going to be able to, provide for their family or whatever, and like it changed the world. And like it's absurd to even compare this to that, because this is like such a smaller stakes thing, but this is inevitable. And if we stop selling the tool tomorrow, it just means more people are going to use Brian's tool or Kareem's tool, and that's unfortunate, but we have to follow the rules as they are, and like that's what we're going to do. So it's and I also should say too, like, I've seen Levitan getting hate. Like, I actually saw a couple people put Silva's name in on stuff, and it's like, dude, Silva's like the most pure guy in the world that like is like one of my favorite people I've ever met in my entire life. And he probably doesn't even know the product exists, but like it wouldn't use it if he did. These Adam and Evan are like content creators, like the best of the best, just trying to do the right thing in terms of like serving their fans and audience. And I was the one that was like, hey, we got to do this. This is a good opportunity. If we don't, we're in a bad competitive position to people that are going to do it and then can build up their business by doing it, and then compete with us in the current places that we serve our customers. And so they shouldn't be getting any hate for this, honestly. If you want to hate someone, hate me. I ruined poker a long time ago, according to many. But that please don't put your hate on them.
Well, and Herzig. People hating on Herzig. I mean, Herzig has no incentive. I consider Herzig like one of, if not the best ball player out there. He's made the BBM final, I think, all 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, or something insane like that. People hating on him. He doesn't like. It's not his goal to try to have this tool make it harder for him to win. Like, he's literally like out there winning. Like, so yeah. I was on top of that. I would say leave Herzig alone, my guy.
I approve of the Herzig hate. No. What if this like scenario, counterfactual? What if Underdog upgraded their auto drafting, right? And so like you could do more caps. There's a correlation slider in the settings page, right? It makes my or our products obsolete. Are they the bad guys now? Like, would people bitch about that?
Yeah, the answer is yes. They would.
Well, okay, fair enough. People will bitch about anything.
So, and for what it's worth, I hope someone from Underdog's watching and DraftKings. They should do things like that. They should have optional features that can show some of the elements that are put into these tools. You could easily say, optionally show me the week 17 schedule. In a settings tool, things that like will make it, like less beneficial to buy another outside tool and like quote unquote level the playing field. And I think that's perfectly reasonable to do, and like they should do that. And if people want to pay for features that are some more advanced, then they can go ahead and do that too, but just raise the floor for the common guy.
Do your guys' tool, because Brian, you said your tool functions differently on DraftKings?
Yes. I mean, it functions basically the same way. Yeah. But you can auto draft on DraftKings.
You can auto draft on DraftKings. Does yours? What about on Drafters?
I don't know. I don't think so, honestly. But I don't know. We don't have a lot of Drafter subs, so I don't really keep track of what Draft.
Does the Draft Assistant? Yeah, is yours on DraftKings?
Yes.
Okay.
You
But
can't. You
you're-
cannot auto draft with any of our products. It's yeah. No auto draft.
Okay. But they're already there is like a district like DraftKings. It never told you to stop doing the auto draft portion for yours.
Nope.
They don't care.
No. Yeah. And about just well, if we're putting our opinion out there, I think they should allow auto draft. I don't think it's who gives a shit. Like that would make way more people more likely to enter a draft so they could go, take care of their kid or something while they're drafting and come back. And it's still making picks for them. It's the quality that they want to allow. That's the issue. Like, do you really want to allow, the most complicated sim process we could create for the users? And then auto drafting becomes a problem. The current iterations, auto drafts just saves people time. That's my opinion. Obviously, they're not going to allow it. I'm not saying, and fine, more power to them. I don't think it's a big deal to auto draft. I think it's actually more beneficial. But the reason I said the underdog, if they create their own things, Taylor, if they create their own like additions on the settings, okay, picture it from the mindset of the hater guy. Wouldn't you much rather have the user go to ETR or Draft Caddy to get that than have it automatically on underdog? It would be way better for him to have it go through us.
Yes. So, but like, this is the thing. This is going that way no matter what. Like in time, whether we do it, the sites do it, or people privately do it, and slowly, if make no mistake, if it's only private, it's going to proliferate privately just more slowly than it will if it's being sold. People will share with friends. People will say there'll be an incentive to do this because there's money to be made. And assuming the game grows and the fields are soft, as the so-called haters say, like there's a lot of money to be made, it's just going to slowly be eroded. And like it's just a matter of how it gets there. But yeah, I do think the sites should think about it.
Yeah, and fine, fair enough. But if they do it, like logically, this person should be thinking, "Oh, that's even worse than the ETR tool." That totally follows for me. Is if they make it free for everyone, that raises everyone's floor automatically. At least have the barrier of entry to pay. That somebody has to pay to get it. If you think it's that good, there's also an entertainment factor in here for me, where I find it way more fun to draft when I have all the stuff right in front of me. Like the player rankings, the difference between the ADP and ETR's rankings, or two different sites rankings right next to each other, and the weeks, knowing the weeks. It's way more fun to do that and then have to go back and like, what's the Bears week 16? Of course you have to, they would probably make the argument, well, memorization is part of it, but still, I feel like for me and guys like me, it's way more entertaining to use a product like this.
Yeah, there are poker sites now that have elements of a poker HUD built into the software.
Oh yeah,
and I said this like 15 years ago that they should do this, and it was just like it slowly started to go that way. And you know what? People still use more advanced tools than that, but it does level the playing field. It does make it easier for the average guy to have the same tools at their disposal. But the big point is, it's not the tool that's making you successful. The pro is using the tool along with their mind to be successful. It's not just like taking the answers from the stats or the information. And it's just too complicated of a game to do that. So I don't know. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. So my suggestion for Underdog, I think it's pretty obvious. They should ban all tools except the Draft Caddy.
Because you were first.
Solution here. My unbiased, unfiltered opinion. So what do you think, Pete? What do you think they should do here?
I do think they should make a clear statement, because that is a lot of the ambiguity. Levitan was referencing the clip from Jeremy that people were circulating. They feel like there is not a clear statement from them. I think they need to clear that up for people. Hey, these types of tools are allowed. They are not allowed to select players for people. You have to manually draft your teams unless you're using the auto draft function. I think they need to do that. And then beyond that, I think Levitan just needs to give people a no excuses, play like a champion speech that he's perfected over the years here.
Yeah. I honestly don't want to take it that far, because like I am sympathetic to, like I said, with like the online poker stuff, like I am sympathetic. People don't want to play against 9 people at the poker table botting. You know what I mean? Like people just don't want that. I don't want that. You know what I mean? So I am sympathetic to that. But to be clear, that's not what's happening here. Number one. And number two, like on the Jeremy clip, like, I mean, like we have to play by the rules. You know what I mean? Like whatever the rules are, we play by them. Underdog outlined the rules, and that's what we play by. That's it. You know what I mean? Like just is what it is.
Yeah, and like I think people can insinuate there, like, oh, that underdog's rules are too loose. I don't think so. Like, I don't think there's much to it. And the poker solver analogy, the big problem with that is poker is a solvable game.
Yeah.
You know, DFS or best ball more specifically is not solvable. So like, even if the best tools come out, like I seriously think if the best tools came out tomorrow, I don't think it would change the game significantly because they'd be priced so high anyways that only a few people would use them. And I don't think in Best Ball Monster would matter even with like a really good sim.
I believe you're referring to Best Ball Mania. You keep saying Best Ball Monster.
No, I get like Basketball Monster mixed up.
Yeah.
Like
He did it last show. I've stopped correcting him. I just assume the chat at this point knows.
Well, I don't even know what he's talking about. Best Ball. I'm like, what's Best Ball Monster?
I thought that was a tool that I wasn't aware of, and I was like, man, I gotta get out, look around here.
Well, if Basketball Monster would have made a Best Ball Monster tool, maybe they'd be doing better. You know, think ahead.
Yeah. One thing that I think is interesting is as these tools continue to expand, not like in the features, but just being used more. There will be changes in like the dynamics of the drafting. Like people will use them and might have more trends on the way they're picking. There's always like a second order effect of like, how can I exploit this trend that's happening? So like if I were in the market playing like seriously, I would really be trying to get a sense of like, how do I think this changes things and where are they wrong? Where can I improve? And like, I don't know. I just think I think that it's like far from a point of like being solved, and there's probably going to be quite a bit of opportunity even still.
Yeah, the more when you say that too, I'm like my head goes right to like these criticizers. They're not gonna listen to nuance. They're not gonna like go like, oh, Taylor makes a good point. I just need to like utilize and look, see where they're wrong, and then get an edge based off of that. They wouldn't have commented in the first place.
Some people will. I mean, certainly, maybe not everyone will, but people. I give people credit. Like there are a lot of smart people out there that will make a good decision for themselves. Here's another interesting thing. We put up this video on YouTube on Friday. Not significant amount of sales bump from the video. From the weekend, where all the people going on Twitter talking about how bad it was, the sales spiked significantly because of all the people being like, "Oh shit! Like maybe this is something I should check out." So my advice.
Everyone says it's destroying the game. I better go help destroy the game and get
this. That's my own interest. My advice is just like don't go around telling people how bad this is, and just go around figuring out how you can use this to your advantage in some way. Whether it's using the tool, whether it's exploiting the tool, I don't know. Finding something else to do with your time. I don't know the answer to that, but yeah.
And I think, the other comment that I've seen a lot from, let's just say, more like level-headed people that are still disappointed about the trajectory is they say, it's taking the fun away from it. Kind of what Adam was describing. If you're playing bots at the poker table or whatever, this idea of being in a draft, it's like best ball kind of replicates the season-long thing and allows you to scale it by doing a ton of drafts. And they're saying it's not fun anymore if everyone's doing this, which the thing that's different to me, like look at the DFS stuff, where, people say it's not fun anymore because of people are just pressing sim on a simulator, but people still have fun hand building lineups, hand building their stuff. The difference to me is my hand built lineup versus sim lords in DFS is like essentially drawing dead. Whereas my lineup that I draft raw dog on underdog versus someone who's using the best of these tools. It can be Davis Maddock with all 4 tools overlaid on top of each other. So you have 19 different stimuli that you ignore. Even that, like I'll put my lineup up against any of those two. So like the edge gap you're getting in those 2 examples is like nowhere even close to similar.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with the DFS part though. I mean, Pete, you said, even you using the single lineup sim for the solver to like test lineups and yep. I guess you're using a solver, but it's $19 a month for that product. And for a really low price, you can get really high quality feedback, which I think is the same thing going on here. like it's not that expensive to use these products. Now I get it. If you're playing like a $10, if your budget's like, you know, $10, $20, $30 for the summer, it doesn't make sense to buy a $35 tool. But for most people, I feel like the price point is actually pretty reasonable. And I think that's the same for a single lineup sim in DFS. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to put that out there. I hear your point on it.
Yeah, I just mean like the how people like what is, you know, what's the fun aspect for them. I guess I haven't experienced a room that I've drafted in. And maybe this will change where I'm like, I'm not having fun because someone is getting suggested to make picks off of someone else's ranking input. Like that just feels, I just haven't experienced that yet.
Yeah. I'd say one of my favorite places to draft is like after the kids go to bed, after my wife goes to bed, I'm in bed, I can't sleep. I just fire it up on my phone and I do a draft. And like, I know now everybody's going to be like, there's Adam in the draft. He's getting AI tool help. I'm like, no, I'm fucking naked in my bed drafting because I like it. I don't really see how like, and I would draft very similarly off the tool. I mean, off of the tool, or if I was in my bed, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure how the fun is any different. I'm going to have very similar teams, whether I'm using the tool or whether I'm in my bed. I think the big difference is, and I'm sympathetic to this, that people like me who don't want to spend 40 minutes or an hour on a puppy draft, I might fire up 10 at once now and use the tool to do so, you know? And so I'm sympathetic to that a larger portion of the puppy may be sharper people.
What about this idea? A app only drafts. So, you know, right? You know how like DFS has like $2, $5, whatever the minimum, you know, that you pay. It's just app only drafts.
That's a great idea. I wonder though if there'll be technology can't you recreate like the app on your desktop or something like that?
Yeah, I guess that's a pain in the ass though.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying people are always going to break the rules, and that's the shitty part. It's better to have like some floor, like we keep talking about, even if it's integrated into the platform, the sites build it themselves. But I think that's actually a really cool idea, at least from a perception standpoint, that will feel better, you know?
Well, and the reason I mentioned it too is also the perception is what percentage of underdog users use their app to draft?
Probably 80 or 90%.
80. No tools that I know of work on an app.
You can't have a
so it's like it's like chill out.
So the one other kind of extension of this combo that I'm more interested in having, because I find it for season-long best ball to just be very boring, but I do think it's an interesting conversation for the dailies on underdog, where there is more of an element of, you know, obviously the projections and the volatility is going to be far less than over like a 17-week sample, and the ability to get volume down. And those, like, I think this conversation is a lot more interesting for that, which is an issue because these tools are going to work in the daily games as well. I'm curious, do you think there should be nuance there, or that there is nuance as far as how these tools assist in season long versus daily?
Well, the first thing I would say is they've already been doing this for two years. So it's whatever I say has been happening. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't really agree, because I think that I think if anything, it's worse in dailies. You can get a lot of volume quickly. You know, it's going every day. You can be playing. The people that are serious are going to be more serious about those, and they're going to look for every edge that they can find. So that's where it makes even more sense for the casual guy playing a daily to have something to help them. I think, like, I just don't think this is like that helpful for season long. Like, if you know what you're doing, if you're paying attention. But yeah, it would be nice for a daily draft to have this. I've never personally done it, but maybe someone else has a better answer there.
I've never played the dailies at all, because I just don't have time, man. You know, like I just don't have time to sit there and do the dailies. So I'm not even sure exactly how they work or how it would work, to be honest. But I would say that if there was something that could eliminate the time aspect of it for me, I would try it, you know, and that might change the dynamics of the game.
Yeah, I think, Pete, you were also asking from the perspective of the people who hate this stuff. And dailies are clearly easily more solvable. None of this stuff's solvable in like the poker world terms. But dailies, the way
he has a weekly sim for the dailies, and said that trying to make a Best Ball Monster sim would essentially break his computer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about like, a bunch of different ways. Like, what if we do this? What if we do this? To try to like make it realistic. It's just not worth it. It would basically just be for fun, kind of to the best ball mania, as I'm told it's called. The dailies though are much more solvable for sure. There's also like arguments of liquidity. They want to build those up, and but listen, if I ran the company, like, I would do things my way. Who knows how they want to do it? But I would definitely want tools if I was running that company, and especially in dailies, because the liquidity is a problem. You want that to kind of compete with the DFS bros or the DFS sites. So like the tools make it way more fun and easy to play your least popular game that can make you more money, right? It's every week. Still hard to solve. Remember, if you're drafting on Wednesday, like Etr'S ranks aren't up, Etr'S projections aren't up, injuries aren't known. There's not a lot of news out there. Like there is no poker solver there that could solve that in this world. But just to be totally honest, dailies are exponentially easier to solve. I keep using that. What word should we use instead of solver? Because I feel like that's been the problem here.
Predict. The word is predict. No, I don't know. I think that like just because like the tool doesn't exist, there are still going to be people solving air quotes the dailies and giving recommendations as to like who are the best picks. Like the tool is sort of like putting that on top of a draft screen as opposed to like doing analysis that has not been done already. So I don't think there's really any substantive difference between dailies and best ball here, although acknowledging dailies are easier to air quotes solve.
And to me, the arguments that are more compelling, it goes back to when I hear people talk about why they like these tools, they keep saying it saved them time. And I'm sympathetic to the one that said like the edge or the place for going to underdog was this safe haven of like, we're going to keep shady advice out of play over here because he doesn't want to spend all this time drafting a team. They're going to go run their stuff. Brian runs his stuff for football DFS in 45 minutes or whatever. Boom, bam. Like Brian's not going to go and sit here and spend hours and hours and hours drafting. And so people kind of like that distinction. Like, you want to come play over here? Well, guess what? You have to be a virgin with no life who can spend all their time drafting just like me. And they feel like this is kind of eroding that of, okay, now people can come in here. They can get in more volume. They don't have to sink the time investment in. And this is shortcutting the thing that I was personally investing and now makes that less of the barrier to success.
I think a great idea for the dailies is actually doing the app-only drafts for those specifically. You can make the biggest flagship tournament that you need liquidity for, have it be anybody can draft. If you feel that there's an advantage to those people in those drafting on desktop, make an app-only draft for the dailies that's going to have less liquidity, but is completely immune to any outside software. And you don't have to call it like anything other than app only or mobile only. And like most people won't even know what that means. But if you feel like that's important, then you should go draft on those games. I think that makes total sense.
Yeah, whoever thought of it? Fucking genius. The app only too. But like I think in this statement, whatever is going to be released, please say what percentage are app only already. It's got to be like 80-90%. Like chill out. No apps currently work or allowed. I don't know if allowed is the right word on the app. So the vast majority of people are not using these tools.
Yeah. I think what Overzet just said is like hit the nail on the head with like the vibe from the people that we've heard from that are like super against this. Like just hit it right on the head for sure. The one pushback that I have against like a lot of these thoughts is like people were like, oh, I can't beat the Sims and the best players in DFS. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go bet forced parlays on underdog and prize picks, and then I'm going to win. It's like these people are losing massively on those. You know what I mean? So it's like, like there's just
honestly,
go ahead.
I was just saying, and I think that's at the root of it, right? Because of how much variance there is, the time between when you draft the team and realize if it was a good team or not. it's easier to kind of delude yourself or lie to yourself about how good you're playing. Like the feedback loop is so slow relative to DFS, relative to sports betting. Like you get your dick kicked in week after week at DFS, you learn pretty quickly. Like you're fucking out. It's so much easier. Like the hope that brews within best ball is really like what carries the entire thing, because you get, as Davis keeps joking around that we're all going to lose anyways, it's just so much easier to forget that when you just realize that on January 1st and not like week after week. And so I think that's been another part of like the psychology of these best ball drafters, is it's like you can kind of just exist in this world and almost separate from like the results, because you are having fun and it's so down the road.
Yeah. The sweat is fun. There's no doubt the sweat is 100% fun. And it's a long sweat.
Yeah. I think it's similar to season-long fantasy. Like everybody by like October, when they've had 2 injuries and their team sucks, is like, oh my God, what did I do? And then like I'm already like Johnson for it in May, and it's like by the time August rolls around, I'll be so pumped, and it will never change.
Yeah, big time sweat equity for sure. Now, can we I just want to talk about the examining their moral claims here really quickly, right? So like, no, seriously. So their moral claim, right, is like, there's a bunch of 4 greedy guys up here, right, that are just trying to make a buck off the little guy, right, or whatever. So the people who now, and I'm one of these, by the way. So like when poker was becoming more and more advanced, like in some Poker Pro came out with an ebook that was actually good, like that sucks. Like now there's like 1,000 dudes who are gonna know about combos that no one knew about combos, and a new tool, and like every single tool, lowered my edge to win, and I get it. Like no one wants that, but like, what are you really saying here, right? Is also like the group of guys who would get like a little bit of bump, like that's your money. Like this is your moral compass. Like, no, I get to take their money, not you. You can't help them. That's mine. Like, so you're not greedy in this situation? Just the guy who came up with a tool that shows ETR rankings? No, am I wrong, guys? Am I saying that not every party here is like just a benevolent, actor?
No.
Every take is overfitted to people's personal experience and like what they want out of it, right? Like if you are a player, you don't want other players to get better, right? Like you always want what is best for you in that specific situation.
Yeah. I don't blame anyone for that. Everybody should look out for their own self-interest. You know what I mean? Like that's just life.
Yeah, there's no, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm saying I'm the exact same thing in poker. I wish it would have been a lot easier.
And that's what's so funny too, because, and I always think about this when people talk about like edges and best ball and stuff. And it's like, one of the things that is great for the ecosystem are all the new game types within the Underdog umbrella. And a lot of these caddies and assistants don't have support for Eliminator. They don't have support for these different game types that are in its infancy. And we don't have a ton of data where there's not a Leone manifesto about how to solve a head-to-head matchup for 15 weeks in the Eliminator, but people don't actually want to go where there could be an edge. Because that's the thing. A lot of times people say they want the edge. They want the edge to be comfy. They want the edge to come to where it's already at, as opposed to seeking out whatever the South Korean ping pong betting is of best ball. And so that's the thing too, where it's like, I have no problem if you just say, I fucking love standard best ball 18 rounds. Like that's where I'm at. But then don't be bad when that's everyone else's favorite and there's not an edge there. There are places on Underdog you can go get an edge right now if you want to. People just don't want to go play there.
Yeah, you need a time machine if that's what you want, because time marches on.
I've told people I haven't played poker seriously for like well over a decade. And I still, because I used to play at a high level, I still get asked from people like regularly, what's the best way to make money playing poker? What should I do if I want to make money gambling? And my answer is always some version of what Pete just said. Like, don't do what I did. When I got into poker, it was unsolved and it was very new and it was the place to be. But go to the next thing. And like, then the next question is always, what's the next thing? And like, I don't know what if I knew what it was, I'd be doing it right now. But it's been some version of DFS, crypto, best ball, all these things were the next thing at some point in time. Like find a nuanced, like a derivative of something that's already popular and get there before everybody else. And that if you really want to profit.
Yeah. And I tell the people same thing about DFS, like play tiers or play like the different styles. Like classic NFL is going to be very difficult, you know, but like there's tons of action on tons of other places, like Pete's saying, to find. So yeah.
Or be realistic if you want to continue to play. Understand it's harder. There's a lot of tools out there, and then figure out a way to get an edge in the existing marketplace if you want to keep playing.
Yeah, and to be clear, I still play DFS every week for fun. You know, it's just like it's just not my job, and like it doesn't mean you shouldn't do this stuff. But if you're really trying to maximize your earn, you have to be thinking outside of the box and being ahead of the curve.
Yep. Levitan, how do we make you not depressed? Are you going to be depressed?
I'm not tweeting. You guys, no sex jokes for at least 3 weeks. I'm not.
You're holding the sex
I'm taking a hiatus from Twitter for a while. It's just too much. It's just too depressing. So yeah, I'll be back eventually. But yeah.
So you just have to have no respect for people, generally speaking, Adam. And then you're like, yeah. Whatever. You're an
honestly,
idiot.
Man, I've had a really good. I know no one else has. I've honestly had a really good experience online. I've been on Twitter like literally since it started. I've had an incredible experience. This specific thing has made me like really question how I want to be on like social media. Like it's fucking awful. Like, and like I get why people don't do it, but I'll be back. It's
clearly different. Like now things snowball so much. Like I think this is representative of like the algo is going to feed you stuff that you're engaging with. It's much better at showing the right people the right things, like the things that basically engage / trigger them the most. And it just snowballs quickly. Something that isn't even, I mean, objectively that big of a concept, big of a deal becomes really, really big. And then next week there'll be another thing, you know, that people will be involved in. I don't know. Not that I feel like I'm lecturing, but like I wouldn't take too much away from this. It's just like it is the way that it is.
So for 15 minutes after I was like looking through the threads and stuff, I was like, this is a marketing play. This is a total marketing play because this is going to get them so much engagement. And then I'm thinking like, man, the next product we release, we have to do something like this. Like we're cheating and you can cheat too. There's a warrant out for Nerdy Tender's arrest right now. Sign up.
You just hire Levitan and Herzig as the influencers to get it going. But Levitan, like, so I guess to circle all the way back and like, you know, you wanted to talk about stuff on here. And people are like in the comments, like get a dissenting opinion, blah, blah. Like I'm happy to have that conversation. Adam reached out to us to come on and talk like literally, you know, 12 hours ago or whatever. Like we're not spinning up a full blown panel. If there are actual, you know, people that can come on here and articulate and have good conversations, like we have been open to having those conversations. But yeah. I guess to put a bow on it for you, Levitan, like was this the kind of combo you were hoping to have? Are there other things you wanted to say about this, or was this just needed kind of a cathartic place to actually talk as opposed to Twitter?
No, I think that we covered everything that I thought that we should cover. And like to me, the dissenting opinion would be like, this shit shouldn't be allowed. Underdog should ban it. And me and Taylor would be fine. We're not doing it anymore. Like that's the end of the debate. What is there debate to have? If Underdog wants to ban it, we'll stop selling it. I don't understand how a debate would go with someone who says this stuff should be banned. That's fine. We'll kill it. You know what I mean? Like it's not the end of the world at all.
Yeah. And so I mean, like people, everyone like tagging Underdog win to puppy, you know, say you can ask them for the statement. Like if you want the clarity from Underdog, and it sounds like they're gonna work on that.
So predictions.
Yeah. Yes.
The statement predictions are general policy. I think because solver is in your company name, I think that's going to be, so it's going to be like no solvers allowed I think like overlay tools, explicitly fine. This is my guess. I have no knowledge on this. Solvers banned, no auto drafters. They make that explicitly banned again, but they've already made that explicit in my opinion, but I guess there's more people they got to do. And then the two things I'd like to see that probably aren't there is what percentage are app users let people know that no tools work on an app. And then maybe like the idea we talked about earlier, like an app only tournament or maybe there's something even more creative they could do.
Yeah, that would be it. They've had like, you know, with some of their pick'ems promos, it's been like app only the way they've done it. So like there's definitely the way to do that. I think that would be fun. How about you call it the raw dog? There you go. The name is already.
Oh man.
By the way, DFS sites have done this for years, where they have beginner contests that are only for people that have played a certain amount of entries, and it's a pretty big number. It's at least 500 to be in there. That's a lot of entries. So like they could easily address this in that way.
Yeah.
I just on the solver thing. Can you tell me what is a solver? Like, is the name of our product a solver because it's the solver, or is it just like?
It's literally the confusion between the company name being the solver and like people read. I'm like looking at your promo. It says the solver draft assistant, and it's all one. Like I think you need to put a colon after the solver. The solver draft assistant, because they're not reading it as a solver draft assistant.
Well, dude,
I'm telling you, that is like 90% of the
I bet that's it.
name.
Well, right. Yeah. Not a solver draft assistant.
The solver presents.
Right, presented by the solver, in quotes, not a solver.
You know what I wanted to name the solver instead? I got outvoted. My name was the Chalk. I wanted it to be called thechalk.com just because I thought it was a funny, like a betting name, and everybody thought the solver was better. So just whoever outvoted me, just if you're watching that.
Well, you have to pay for that URL. Could you get that, puppy?
I think it was like for sale or something. For some reason, I thought we could get it. Yeah.
The solver's good for DFS though, because like people have been primed with optimizers and stuff for years before Sims even came out. Then Sims were like soft launch, probably a lot of it due to our show, honestly. And people are like, man, I'm sick of these nerds having their private Sims. I want some too, So it was like kind of a slower evolution, and so solver is like I think good marketing for DFS specific. So
what about for draft assistants?
I would say it's pretty bad unless you're doing this little game where you actually want the engagement. Then it's good.
Dude, we can get engagement with dick jokes, buddy. We don't have to name the company something to get engagement.
I think you got to rebrand it.
Go ahead.
To make people feel like it's not as powerful. I think if you name like the solvers, little pussy draft bitch, like something that makes them think it's just such a minuscule, unimportant thing. I think that's what you guys got to do at this point.
Adam's like got a bunch of followers too, so I think it's just when you have that many, you're gonna just get a bunch of people who might complain. If something gets triggered.
Of course, I'm used to that. On every tweet that I make, there's some percentage of people that are like, "Fuck you, you're an idiot," go to hell. There's some percentage of that. This was overwhelming though in terms of.
I told you I was sorry. I was upset that day.
Anything else you guys would like to say here at this end of the Emergency LOLz?
No. Thanks for having us. Happy if people want the dissenting debate, we're happy to come back and dissenting debate.
Yeah. Honestly, I was thinking we could go through some like good arguments in chat, but there wasn't a whole bunch of them. I also a ban I would support, of course. Every other company besides the Draft Caddy would be the ideal ban, I think. But instead of that, just a statement would be, I think, plenty.
Yeah. All right. There you guys go. Thank you again to Taylor and Adam. Thank you to some of you in the chat today. And we will see you guys next time on LOLz. Still have fun drafting out there. We'll see you guys next time.